Judge ready?
Yeah.
Opponents ready? Partner ready?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is Sarah Birdie, and my partner Andrew and I affirm the resolved. Increased restrictions on legal immigration by the United States is beneficial. First, we would like to define a few key terms. Legal immigration, someone who has been granted authorization to live and work in the U.S. on a permanent basis. Human rights, rights inherent to all human beings, including the right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, and the right to work and education. Native, a person born in a specified place or associated with a place by birth. Contention 1, lowered wages for natives. A mass influx of immigrants, as we have been seeing in modern times, while adding to the economy, has a severe detrimental impact on low-wage workers. As these low-wage workers are seeing their wages sink as immigrants are accepting lower pay and taking their jobs. According to NPR, August 2017, increased immigration is correlated to a decrease in the wages of low-earning natives. It is true that wages for low-wage workers have declined. They fell 5% from 1979 to 2013. During that same period, the hourly wages of high-wage workers rose 41%, according to the Economic Policy Institute. Regardless of caused by or contributed to by the influx of immigrants, there is a clear indication of negative impacts caused by an influx of immigrants to low-wage native workers' salaries. A study corroborating the Economic Policy Institute's claim was found in 2017, as Stephen Miller cited a work from George Borjas, a Harvard labor economist, on how the influx of Mario Cuba immigrants lowered blue-collar wages. Borjas re-examined old data and talked about how it actually did reduce wages for workers. The wages of high school dropouts in Miami dropped 10 to 30% after the immigrant influx from 1977 to 1993. And thus history has shown us, time and time again, that an influx of immigrants is directly correlated to the lowering of low-wage workers' salaries. Contention 2, burden on taxpayers. The influx of immigrants to the U.S. is detrimental to natives because a majority of these immigrants are on welfare. And if our natives are paying for these welfare institutions through their taxes, then they are suffering an economic loss. More immigrants means there are more people on welfare, and taxpayers have to pay more money to sustain these increased levels of welfare. A study by the Center for Immigration Studies found that an estimated 49% of households headed by legal immigrants used one or more welfare programs in 2012, compared to 30% households headed by natives. Households headed by legal immigrants have higher use rates than native households overall for cash programs, 14% versus 10%, food programs, 36% versus 22%, and Medicaid, 39% versus 23%. And the use of housing programs has similar trends. Evidently, this level of welfare use is highly detrimental to taxpayers, as they pay more in taxes and have to endure a lower quality of life, as they're losing more and more money to the federal government. So an increase in restrictions upon these immigrants would equal a lower amount of people on welfare, and thus our natives are paying less money to the government. And our third contention is the mistreatment of immigrants. As immigrants often enter the United States with their American dream, and they believe that they can succeed through hard work and perseverance, and their goal is to live comfortably. However, as soon as they start this road to their dreams, they find it shattered. The American dream is unattainable for the majority of immigrants who come in through mass immigration. There are undeniable benefits caused by immigrants, but this comes with a cost. American corporations strip immigrants of their dreams and force them to work with very little results. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration found they released a statement that stated that immigrants are differentially more at risk to face abuse and mistreatment by their employers. And thus, these people are falling victim, and as they come from countries where they might have even been better off, they come here and face these abuses, and they are being hurt. And this is why, Judge, I urge a pro ballot. Thank you.
Okay, so your point about welfare in your second contention, but many legal immigrants don't get to use means-tested welfare in their first 5 years, and after those first 5 years, they've assimilated into U.S. culture and begun to make more of a life for themselves.
However, we have statistics that are saying that close to 50% of these immigrants are on welfare, and thus, even though they might have been here for 5 years, they still go on welfare after that time period.
But more assimilation into U.S. culture means you have something to contribute to. You have something like, I want to work toward this goal of, I'm assimilating to U.S. culture, I want to work toward this goal. So if they're assimilating more into this culture of the U.S., wouldn't that make them more likely to try to contribute, like even if they can't contribute to the economy, even like diversity or culture?
Well, this is being contradicted by the claims, by the clear data that's showing that 49% of these immigrants are on welfare, that there's so many immigrants who are on welfare, they're in bad situations, and thus they have to go and take these services, and they're using these services differentially at a higher rate than natives. And so there is a cost to native taxpayers that cannot be refuted because it's clear data.
Okay, so with their first contention of lowered wages, about the high school dropouts, did they say they increase or decrease?
Their wages decrease.
Okay, and also with the lowered wages, even if they can contribute to the economy, don't you think that even if they contribute to more diversity, more culture, as Statue of Liberty quote, don't you think that it's like the culture that we enjoy today, don't you think that's still important, that we get the best of culture from everyone?
Of course, but that culture is omnipresent in this society, as shown recently. We're just saying that an increase on the restrictions in order to prevent economic ramifications. There's no mention of culture being decreased or diversity being decreased, because there are people of different ethnicities, previous immigrants, who are already assimilated into society.
Is everyone ready?
Give me like 10, 20 seconds. Okay, I'm ready.
My time starts now. Hi, my name is Angela and I negate the resolution. Increased restrictions on legal immigration by the U.S. is beneficial. First, I would like to define some definitions. Increase, made or become greater. Beneficial, producing good results or helpful effects. The con wins this debate if we can prove diversity brought by legal immigrants is more beneficial. Our first contention is diversity. A lot of diversity in the U.S. would be very beneficial, and putting restrictions doesn't increase diversity. As a quote stated by the Statue of Liberty, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wrenched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest toast to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." Between 1886 and 1924, many immigrants entered the U.S. through New York. The Statue of Liberty was a reassuring sign that they have arrived in the land of their dreams. Hansen stated in 2016, "The U.S. has always cherished its melting pot," referring to blending people into one. Immigrants come to America to live the American dream and also to get a second chance. Diversity brings the best from everyone. For example, Einstein. He was an immigrant. The contributions he made to the U.S. were so positive. Steve Jobs, whose father was a legal immigrant as well from Syria. If he never came here, we probably wouldn't have had such great source of technology we have today. Our impact is that jobs will go unfilled. Many important jobs, like doctors, will go unfilled if we do not have enough diverse knowledge from around the world. White in 2013 stated that American Medical Association projects that by 2025, we will face a shortage of more than 90,000 physicians. Fisher in 2016 found that over 1/4 of physicians and surgeons in the U.S. are foreign-born. There won't be enough native-born healthcare workers to meet the growing demand, especially in the geographic areas where we need it the most. With restrictions, fewer people will come to America and live the American dream. Our second contention is the U.S.'s global image. Our main subpoint is tourism. Tourism, which is crucial to the U.S.'s economy, will continue to decline if restrictions are being placed. Melanie Zanona stated that President Trump banned travelers from 7 countries in the Muslim areas. This impacted the U.S. tourism, global business, and enrollment in American university. Though it's only temporary, many voices say that this policy could have a long-term impact. Thomas M. McDonald, a professor at Pace University Law School, stated that there's a real potential negative impact even after the 90 to 100-day period is over. Also stated, if you were a Muslim from one of those 7 countries banned, you along with other people would say, "Gee, should I really go to the U.S. anymore? Who knows what might happen to me?" Trimble in 2018 stated that surveys found that it hurt the country's reputation, causing America to drop in not only tourism ranks, but global perception as well. The U.S. slipped from 4th best in 2016. Then it gone down to 7th in 2017. This year, it dropped again to 8th. The reason to this is because people are afraid to come. If we do promote the fact to increase restrictions, fewer people will be coming, due to the fact that they are afraid of what we'll do to them. Our impacts are bad image. People get scared and don't come. America is supposed to be diverse, supposedly to be welcoming. Treating legal immigrants that way, the tourists are going to be afraid of how they will get treated. Our second impact is bad for the economy. Losing money from less people coming. Popkin in 2018 stated that travel to the U.S. has been on the decline, and new data from the Commerce Department shows a $4.6 billion loss in spendings and also a loss of 40,000 jobs. The latest data shows a 3.3% drop in travel spendings and a 4% decline in inbound travel. Therefore, Judge, for all these reasons stated, I strongly urge a calm ballot. Thank you.
20 seconds per up, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
Alright, let's begin. So my first question is correlated to your second contention, which was about global perception. Why would, if these immigrants are coming from poor backgrounds looking for, say, a better job, how would this impact them coming in? How would this global perception, is this really stopping them?
Can you repeat that, please?
So essentially, what is stopping immigrants from entering the country? As you said, that the global perception is causing a decrease in individuals coming to the United States or immigrating to the United States.
Well, like I said, how President Trump banned countries from the Muslim areas, and like this impacted them because they think that like America isn't being diverse, and like America's supposed to be diverse and be accepting towards cultures. And this is why like tourism is decreasing, because people think that America is bad now.
Okay, thank you. So, but essentially this global perception dip that was explained in the second contention, could this be caused simply by Trump's misrepresentation of the country or inflammatory comments? Like, is there a clear causation between the travel ban and global perception drops?
Well, I mean, like, people are like, well, if you increase restrictions, then it'll make America a worse image, because you're saying no to those immigrants that could potentially do a great deed to our country.
So essentially the issue here is public backlash due to travel bans or restrictions?
Well, so you're saying like due to travel bans and restriction, it's like decreasing.
It's decreasing the amount of immigrants, decreasing the amount of individuals coming into the tourism industry.
Because like I said, there was a loss of $4.6 billion and a loss of 40,000 jobs as well.
Right, is that time?
Yeah.
That's time.
Do you need prep time? 3 minutes.
So, my opponent's ready?
Yes.
Yep.
My name is Jessica, and I'm doing the con attack speech for this round. So first, with their point about how they lower wages, this could be attributed to H-1B, but they actually aren't pushing natives out of the job market, as Noraste found in 2015. The CSI study that found that immigrants were taking jobs and lowering wages for natives actually didn't find immigrants pushing natives out. But if you don't believe that, Perry and Ottaviano found in 2011, immigrants actually compete with preceding immigrants that come before them, not natives. And there's also a demand, as Dodge found in 2016, there's an increasing demand for people that are experienced in tech. As the Economist found in 2016, there are not enough Americans graduating to be able to fill this increasing demand. But even if you don't believe all of that, immigrants coming can actually be beneficial. As Noraste continues, immigrants go to growing regions and they increase the supply and demand, which actually expands into more job opportunities. Vox continues in 2018, immigrants and natives don't compete. Actually, immigrants complement the work of natives and increase their productivity. And Amadeo found in 2017, immigrants that are not fluent in English cannot go into jobs such as managers. So these jobs that require good communication skills are given to Americans. And also, as we stated with student visas, many jobs don't have enough people to fill them. So we need students to come to student visas and fill these jobs. As many jobs, such as doctors and jobs in the STEM area, aren't filled, that is much more detrimental than lower wages. And these student visas could have the next impact, the next breakthrough. And then they talk about the welfare. But actually, many immigrants don't have access to means of welfare in the first 5 years. Now, say in the first cross-ex, through these 5 years, they've assimilated into U.S. culture and they have something they want to contribute to. They say, I'm into this U.S. culture, I want to work to contribute something. And there's actually less benefits for immigrants who use welfare too, as Koo and Bruin found in 2013. Immigrants who use welfare are given less money than natives. And then they talk about mistreatment, but just because immigrants aren't treated as well as they are in other countries, that doesn't mean you put restrictions on doesn't mean you put restrictions on immigration. And now with time left, I will be extending my constructive. So our first contention was all about diversity, and we talked about how Statue of Liberty welcomed with open arms to immigrants who came from different races, different cultures, and that's how we should go today, with people who come from all different places of the world, who bring different perspectives and new views of the world. So one of our impacts was jobs will go unfilled. As I've stated, 90,000 physicians will not have 90,000 jobs as doctors will go unfilled if we do not have enough immigrants. Therefore, I strongly urge a compact law.
Okay, who's crossing? Is it me? Let me check.
It's you.
Oh, it's me? Okay. Everyone's ready? Everyone's ready? Sweet. So, let's begin. Can diversity buy food? Can you go to Walmart and say, here, I have diversity, give me some items?
Well, I guess not.
No, right? Then why is diversity more important than the economy?
Well, you can go to the supermarket and see all the different types of food there are to buy.
Yeah, but you can't buy them without money, right? So why would we value diversity over economy? It's great.
But even though not all of them contribute as much as they could, but they're still contributing something. They're trying to assimilate into U.S. culture, and they're saying that I can contribute diversity. And
so they're just contribute diversity. Okay, thank you. So my next question is stating that that you said that immigration isn't actually pushing immigrants, native workers out, correct?
Yes.
Can you explain the logic behind that?
The evidence?
No, the logic behind that evidence.
Well, as I've said, they're not competing with natives; they're competing with preceding immigrants.
Why wouldn't they be competing with natives? Are you saying that
if they take such as they could some of them who you said don't have enough skill, they could take lower skill jobs such as farmers, gardeners, that preceding immigrants could also take, gardeners, farmers, etc. So
okay, so then if they're taking such low skill jobs, then how would they be able to meet the necessity for doctors and physicians?
I'm saying that
you're saying?
Some, the non-educated ones.
So then the other ones are still pushing native workers out, correct?
But as I've said, there's unfilled jobs in doctors, STEM areas that's more important than lowering wages. Doctors, they're saving lives.
Okay, then how many immigrants are actually educated enough to take these jobs? Can you give me a statistic or some factual evidence on that?
Well, I don't know. I don't have evidence for that. But
Okay, thank you. Then finally, last question. You say that actually no, never mind. No more questions. That's it. Thank you. Can I take a minute prep, please?
Sure.
Opponents ready?
Yes.
Partner ready?
Yes.
Judge ready? My time begins now. So let's move on to their first contention, in which they talk about how immigrants can bring diversity to this country. We agree, diversity is a very important thing. However, we do not believe that we should sacrifice quality of life. We do not believe that we should sacrifice our economy for diversity. As our opponent admitted in the crossfire, diversity can't buy food, it can't buy drink, it can't buy shelter, it can't buy these necessities that are necessary for the people of the United States of America. Therefore, economy outweighs diversity, and their point is invalid. Now, secondly, our opponents talk about how, in the second and third contention, they talk about how restrictions on immigration will be detrimental to the economy. And that's completely untrue. In fact, it's actually the opposite. First off, as we read during an opening statement, in a study by Borjas of Harvard University, a 10% increase in the number of workers with a particular set of skills lowers the wage of that group by at least 3%. This is detrimental to both immigrants and native-born workers because the wages of the jobs that they are taking are being lowered due to the influx of immigrants. Secondly, Secondly, according to the Center for Immigration Studies, they found that since November 2007, there are 1.5 fewer native-born Americans that are working in the labor force. The percentage of men aged 25 to 54 who are working or looking for work has also dropped to the lowest point in recorded history. What this shows to you is that because of the influx of immigrants, it actually leads to the fact that many Americans are no longer able to find jobs, and these Americans are now unemployed. And with this unemployment comes welfare checks, and the fact that taxpayers are even more damaged. Speaking of welfare, as we mentioned to you in our opening statement, 50% of all legal immigrants are on welfare. And 50% of all legal immigrants are on welfare, proving that not only do they not contribute to the economy, they're actually harming it because they are forcing the government to pay for the needs such as food, shelter, and other water, and other money-based needs. Also, our opponents have tried to make the argument that there are many jobs that are unfulfilled in our economy, and that by allowing immigrants to come over, it would actually fill these jobs. However, as we just read to you, 50% of legal immigrants that come over, are on welfare, and 3/4 of them are often uneducated. How can we hope for these immigrants to take these jobs when many of them do not have the skills or experience to even handle a basic job, much less one that requires high-level education such as that of a doctor or that of a physician, etc., etc.? Now, I would like to move on to my own points. First off, as we addressed in our rebuttal and our opening statement, lowered wages. By allowing immigrants to come to the United States, it is detrimental to the wages of these workers by lowering them. Secondly, it hurts taxpayers. Again, the welfare that is needed to provide for these immigrants that come over are highly detrimental to these taxpayers, not to mention the native workers that become unemployed because they lose their jobs to immigrants. Finally, human rights violations. Our opponents fail to address this in their rebuttal, in which we extend that saying that if we don't restrict immigration and allow more immigrants to come over, it only provides more opportunities for these employers to exploit them and to violate their human rights. Clearly, increased restrictions on immigration would benefit the economy and benefit the human rights of these immigrants. And for those reasons, we urge a pro ballot. Wow.
Yeah. Is everyone ready?
Yep.
Yes. The time begins now. So, are you saying that economy is the most important?
Yes.
Why?
Because economy is what drives this country. You can talk about diversity all you want, but at the end of the day, without an economy, you can't do anything. You can't buy anything. You can't trade with other countries. Frankly, you're just dead in the water. Like, you can't provide for your citizens.
So you're saying those $4.6 billion that are being lost and the 40,000 jobs that are being lost don't matter?
I'm not saying they don't matter. I'm just saying that by increasing restrictions, you can actually go against these. Because are you saying that, because as I addressed in my rebuttal, immigrants have pushed out 1.5 million native-born workers. That's much greater than 40,000.
I know, but what about all those money that's being lost?
Well, the money that's lost is greater if you allow immigration to continue. As I mentioned, not only are the wages dropping, but you're creating more unemployment, which needs more welfare, which means the government has to pay even more money to take care of those citizens.
Do you have statistics?
Well, yes, I have the statistics about how wages are dropping by 3%, about how the amount of males aged 24 to 54 who are in the workforce at the lowest point in recorded history. Yeah, that's all that evidence is showing that the economy is being hurt by this immigration.
And also, okay, moving on to the next question, don't immigrants that are not fluent in English not able to handle jobs requiring good communication? So won't those jobs be given to natives?
Those jobs will be given to natives,
exactly,
but then the immigrants will also take other jobs that the natives have that are also low paying. And even if they don't do that, they are unable to take the high quality jobs that we are missing because, as I mentioned in my rebuttal, they are uneducated and therefore do not have the necessary education to meet
Einstein and Steve Jobs, they made such a great change to the
You've
US.
given me two examples, and every year there are 30 million immigrants that come in, and 50% of those are on welfare. That is a much greater difference.
Okay, but think about what jobs did to us though.
Yeah, and there are plenty of American entrepreneurs that have also been beneficial. This isn't allowing immigration isn't going to magically allow our economy to grow and our technological advancements to increase by greatly.
This is 2 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
All right. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Proponents ready? Partner ready?
Yep.
Let's begin. So I will begin the speech by going over the main contentions made in our opening speech, as well as if time allows, then I will address some of the opponent's concerns. So Our first contention was the economic detriment caused to U.S. natives as a result of increased immigration. So these immigrants who are coming in, especially low-skilled immigrants, the high-skilled immigrants are no exception, but they're pushing natives out of their jobs, or they will accept lower pay, thus relatively decreasing the wages overall. This is just a logical point that it makes sense. And the next point is that these uneducated immigrants who are entering the workforce, they're taking these low-skilled jobs. They end up on welfare because of this decrease in low-skilled workers' wages. So this increase in welfare as a result of uneducated immigrants entering the country, this costs U.S. taxpayers money, as well as my partner mentioned in his attack speech, that the U.S. labor force is at the lowest point in recorded history. And so this leaves so many people on welfare as well. And now, as for the diversity issue, there's already diversity in this country. There have been immigrants who have been coming in since the 1700s, as the opponent stated. So is there really going to be an increase, first off? And is this diversity really, as my partner said, is it going to put food on the table? Does it outweigh the economic detriment caused? And the opponent also made no mention of our mistreatment contention as restrictions on the immigrants entering the United States. If they are restricted, then these employers have a smaller pool of people to work with. They cannot afford to mistreat their employees, and it's also easier to find these situations where immigrants are being mistreated because there's not millions of immigrants who are being mistreated. There's a smaller amount to work with, and thus this decreases that impact overall. And that is why I urge a pro ballot. Thank you.
Is everyone ready? My time starts now. So first I would like to say that my opponents failed to respond to our Statue of Liberty quote, and adding on to our diversity contention, we're saying that America should be more diverse, and that putting and a lot of diversity in the U.S. would be very beneficial, but putting restrictions on it don't increase diversity, like the quote stated by the Statue of Liberty. And the American Medical Association says that by 2025, there will be a shortage of more than 90,000 physicians. So we need those immigrants right now. So this is the time we need the most of immigrants. And Fisher also stated that over a quarter of physicians and surgeons in the U.S. are foreign-born, and that America needs more foreign-born people because there's simply not enough native-born healthcare workers to meet the growing demand, especially in the geographic areas where we need it the most. And also, in our second contention about the U.S.'s global image and about tourism, we lost $4.6 billion and a loss of 40,000 jobs as well. And a 3.3% drop in travel spending and a 4% decline in inbound travel. This is because people are afraid to come to America because they're afraid of what they would get treated. This shows a bad image to America because we're supposed to be diverse. We're supposed to be the melting pot and accept all cultures and races. And us treating legal immigrants like that, tourists will slowly go down because of the way we treat our legal immigrants. So therefore, Judge, I strongly urge a calm down. Thank you.
Can I take the rest of my prep, please?
Sure.
Opponents ready?
Yes.
Partner ready?
Yes.
Judge ready? My time begins now. I would like to start by reminding everybody of one thing. This is a restriction on immigration, not on anything else. Now, having said that, this debate comes down to two things: the economic side and the moral side of this argument. On the economic side, first off, we've already disproven their Statue of Liberty quote, as we've proven that the economy is more important than diversity, and that it's more important for the quality of life of Americans. Now, we've already shown that without restrictions on immigration, it will be detrimental to the U.S. economy as a whole because it leads to more unemployment, higher levels of welfare, and decreased jobs. All this together leads to a detriment to our economy, which the U.S. cannot afford right now. Our opponents have tried to state that the restrictions are actually detrimental to the economy, and they bring up the point about tourism. However, remember when I said at the beginning of the speech that this is a restriction on immigration, not tourism. There are too many factors on tourism, and there's no reason why a restriction on immigration would somehow affect our levels of tourism, so therefore that entire point is negated. Now let's move on to the moral side of things. Our opponents have tried to say that by increasing restrictions, we're actually treating these legal immigrants poorly, and that's a moral issue. However, they ignored our entire argument about human rights violations. By allowing these immigrants to come over, it's actually more detrimental to these legal immigrants because they are being mistreated, they're being exploited by their employers. And if we were to increase restrictions on legal immigration, then would lower the amount of immigrants coming over, and therefore lower the cases of legal human rights violations. Overall, if you take a step back, in their world, they have a poor American economy, high levels of mistreatment by their employees. But on our side, we allow native-born workers to come back into the jobs and allow the economy to grow again while protecting those legal immigrants from the exploitation by their employers. Overall, we've won both the economic side and the moral side of this debate, and for those reasons, I urge a pro-ballot. Thank you.
So the time starts now. So both my partner and I's parents are immigrants from China, and they came here not rich, but coming here with a dream. And they came, and now they have stable jobs, and they're raising a family, and that's why my partner and I are able to stand here today. So, as diversity is one of the major arguments of this quote, as we've stated, the Statue of Liberty quote, how we should open our arms and be welcoming to these immigrants who are coming to the United States and create this melting pot of many different cultures. And this also ties in with our global image point about how if we're not appealing toward immigrants already, but if we continue to apply these restrictions and not being able to welcome all of these immigrants from different cultures, different cultural perspectives, that will treat our image as being worse. And they talk about how the tourism is not correlated, but actually, as we've stated throughout this round, because we're treating legal immigrants, putting restrictions on legal immigrants, these, as our constructive has stated, these people, they think, oh, why should I go to this country who is treating people of my race or putting restrictions on people from my race coming to this country and starting a new life and having a second chance. Also, one of the big issues was the economy and how lowering the wages, but one of the immigrants who come without good communication skills, who are not fluent in English, they take the jobs. They don't take the jobs that require good communication skills, like managers. So these jobs go to people who are more fluent in English. Therefore, I strongly urge a con.